You know, I thought when I put my dinosaur talk together, what I wanted to do was something that everybody can do, rather than just from quoting from some scientists. I stayed at the office one day. I did 3 hours on the internet trying to find evolutionary sources where they've proven that this isn't actually the case. So here was the first news report I found. Cretaceous duck ruffles feathers. And it talked about, you know, ducks may have been paddling around in primeval swamps when T-Rex was king of dinosaurs. They found a duck in the same layer that they'd find a T-Rex. A 70-million-year-old duck, so to speak. I kept looking. I found this one. I thought it was the same article redone, but it was a different duck-like creature. This one was supposedly 110 million years old. It looks strikingly similar to today's birds. And look at the way they keep talking about it. Because the bones were buried gently and slowly in mud. Sorry, Fred, wrong answer. Has to be buried rapidly and completely in mud. But anyway, soft tissues were found, flight feathers, webbing like a duck between the bird's toes. They went on to describe it. They called it a gansus because it sounds cooler if you give it a Latin name. Looks like a loon, etc., etc. But look at the last point. It may have looked like a duck and acted like a duck, but gansus was no duck. Well, I'm kind of partial to farmer logic myself, so if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, guess what it is? No. It's a duck. Why can't it be a duck? Because it's supposedly 110 million years old and it just doesn't fit. But it looks and acts like a duck. Kept looking. Found a Mesozoic squirrel. Well, when I was working with my dad up in Pickle Lake, we had flying squirrels all over the place. My mom was trying to save her pies and keep them out of the, they'd come in and try to get her stuff. But this guy's supposedly 65.5 million years, so apparently now you've got the squirrels and the dinosaurs coexisting according to their time scale. And I found this one. It was a 120 million year old platypus. It's got the electrosensors down the bill. Looks like a modern platypus, but it's supposedly 120 million years old. So now we got the platypus coexisting with dinosaurs. This one, Easter surprise, world's oldest rabbit bones found. Supposedly a 53 million year old rabbit. But the researcher who found it, Dr. Weiba, said, well, I wouldn't be surprised if we went out in the field tomorrow and found an 80 million year old rabbit. So the rabbits can coexist with the dinosaurs, no problem. And I found this one, a 164 million year old beaver. So the beavers and the dinosaurs were coexisting for a long time. And they found this one, 130 million year old something. They didn't know exactly what it was. It was a mammal, but its stomach contents contained the remains of a dinosaur. It had eaten a Psittacosaurus. So now we've got a mammal eating a Psittacosaurus. And they called it a Repenomamus robustus. Because again, it sounds cooler if you give it a Latin name, but that Repenomamus robustus looks like a modern day honey badger. Okay, that took me about 3 minutes. Now, according to what you guys learned in school, what I learned in school, has your Age of Dinosaurs picture changed a little bit from what you read about in the dinosaur books? Saw on Discovery Channel, etc.? Mine did. I mean, did you really picture T-Rex, It's not the way it was presented to us, was it? And I mean, I'm just going through this stuff fast. You guys can go to our website, check out some more things. 70 million year old frogs, supposedly, 150 million year old pine trees. If you go to the Tyrone Museum today, you walk in a spectacular family of Tyrannosaurs in a pine forest. That's their first exhibit. It's amazing. Modern paleontologist Donald Burge, he says, we find mammals in almost all of our dinosaur digs. These were not noticed years ago. They just used to not notice all the mammals mixed in with the dinosaurs. We have about 20,000 pounds of bentonite clay that is mammal fossils we're just trying to give away to some researchers. It's not that they're not important, it's just that you only live once and I specialize in something other than mammals. See, you find what you're looking for. You know what we really need? Is we need a new generation of young Christian people, bright. If they've got the skills for it, go out, get your PhD, get out in the field there and find actually what's there. And just tell people what's there rather than interpreting everything all the time according to this evolutionary paradigm. Dr. Luo, in a sense, the Age of Dinosaurs is a misnomer. Mammals are just one such group that lived with dinosaurs, coexisted with dinosaurs, and survived the dinosaurs. See, from what science shows, I have absolutely no problem understanding that God created the creatures on day 6 of creation, that they were buried very rapidly, all together, at the time of the flood. I mean, do we have any examples of rock being formed very quickly? If the fossils form quickly, rocks must form quickly. Those sediments must come down very quickly. Well, actually we do. We've got a DVD over there called Mount St. Helens, and of course this was a huge geological event when the mountain blew up, you know, initially, just a devastating, and it was just a small volcano too. But a lot of the water and the snow and the ice mixed with the sediments on the side of the mountain, and it started flying down the mountain at twice highway speeds. A pyroclastic flow, and as it's flying down, it starts making layers. And of course, we've got before and after shots. None of this was there. None of this was there prior to Mount St. Helens blowing up. And there were 3 subsequent events that deposited this. You go there today, you look at this band, finely layered, laminated rock, solid rock today. Of course, when I was in school, they would say those layers get laid down, you know, VARs, 1 year here, maybe 2 years a year. Add up the layers, must have taken a long time, millions of years. Those layers got laid down in 3 hours, 16 feet of rock, 3 hours. Now that's observable science. That's not, oh, we think. No, no, no. Before and after shots. 3 hours. So it doesn't take millions of years to make rock. It just takes the right conditions. For example, here's a fossil hat. I don't think the dinosaurs were wearing them. Okay? You just got put in a mine and you get the right minerals go in and boom, you know, it evolved from a soft hat to a hard hat, so to speak. Okay? Now, of course, I don't have too much time here today. We get into all sorts of questions. People ask about the dinosaurs on the ark. Were they on it and all that kind of stuff? Well, you know, I guess that leads to the question, how big was the ark? If you're going to put a dinosaur on it, it had to be pretty big. And, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking in a way. And I understand, you're just putting a kid's mural up on a wall. But, you know, you walk into a lot of churches into the kids' room, and this is the way Noah's Ark's depicted, right? It's always got 2 giraffes sticking out the top. Looks like it's stuffed to the gunwales. There's never any dinosaurs on it. It doesn't look like it can stand a strong breeze, let alone a global catastrophe, right? But when you look at what the Bible describes Noah's Ark as, because it's listed how wide it is, how long it was and stuff, that would be a much more accurate representation. And here's some of the largest dinosaurs we've ever seen. Of course, the commandment when God said to put the animals on the ark was to put 2 of every 7 of some. And they were to get off the ark and they were to repopulate the earth. So I don't think you were going to take Grandma and Grandpa dinosaur on board the ark. You know what I mean? You're going to take the young, kind of teenage, you know, ready for a family kind of thing. And so they didn't have to be huge like that. As a matter of fact, an adult tyrannosaur was probably 12 tons. You can get male elephants, adults today, at 8 tons. So see, when you're watching Jurassic Park and you see these gigantic creatures, they're always, they make them a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, you know, than they really were. Many people have criticized the account of Noah's Ark and said, we couldn't build a wooden boat that big, but here's a picture from Time Asia. You know, Time magazine, there's Time Asia. There's a boat that a Chinese admiral, Zheng He, built in the 15th century, I believe, and there's the Ark. That's the Pinta. You know, the Pinta, the Nina, and the Santa Maria? Just to give you some scale there. So we know people have done that. As a matter of fact, if you want to know how big the Ark was, kids, did you guys hate that when you're driving along and you're going and ding, 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 and the train's there, and you're like, oh, man, you got to wait? Next time that happens to you, what I want you to do is I want you to start counting the railway cars as they go by, okay? And when you start counting, when you get up to 520, that's how many railway cars of space you could have fit on Noah's Ark. So lots of room for the animals. And of course, the largest dinosaur egg we ever found was about the size of an ostrich egg anyway. So they didn't start off really big. Matter of fact, I pulled this article off the news in 2009. The study came out and said dinosaur size may have been overestimated. You know, the new study suggests it and its many extinct brethren, like the Diplodocus, weighed as little as half as much as previously thought, because they did this calculation, and when they applied it to modern animals, the modern animals should have been twice as heavy as they really are. My question came, well, where'd you get your calculation in the first place? Why didn't you just... Anyway. How many animals? Well, you need to understand something. You know, Noah didn't need to have 2 pit bulls and 2 Jack Russells and 2, you know, Dachshunds and things like that. He needed to have 2 of the dog kind. Okay, because evolutionists have admitted, all of our modern dog breeds come from wolves. So all these different variations of dogs, even him, they've actually come from there. But that's not evolution, because what you're doing is you're actually using less and less and less of the information till you kind of get this pitiful little thing here. And I know the gal's thinking he's cute, but he's actually a degenerate little mutant. That's what he is. He can't even lift his ears up anymore. The wolf can. You ever see a wolf? You know? This guy here, you know, you got to feed him heart medicine, and you got to get the roto-rooter in there, you know, in the ears, and you got to have a lot of money on to keep these things alive. I know, because I have one. And this is what the evolutionists say. The origin of the domestic dog from wolves has been established, suggesting a common origin from a single gene pool for all dog populations. When National Geographic reported on this article from Science magazine, they say dogs have changed about as much as people around the world have changed, which means not much at all. Well, all the people around the world are people. Then all the dogs around the world are dogs. It means people make people, dogs make dogs, exactly what the Bible says. That's not evolution. Which goes for the dinosaurs as well. Because you can see these are all dogs. Well, some people call that a dog, but anyway. There's a Psittacosaurus, and there's a Triceratops, and there's a Styracosaurus. Well, they're all the same body plan. They're all the same kind, right? As a matter of fact, we're seeing more and more now. This picture here is from our Creation magazine. This is Eclipse, the Zorse. They paddocked a horse and a zebra quite close together. I don't know, midnight rendezvous, and out popped Eclipse. Proving that they're part of the same horse kind that God would have created. And that's a liger. It's not just Napoleon Dynamite. They actually exist. Okay? An amazing creature. Actually, they contain twice the body weight of the male and the female. You know, you got a lion and a tiger. And the creature's like, I don't know, 900 pounds and 13 feet long or something. Incredible. It's a lot more docile than our modern cats, too. So, and you know your little tabby cats that you have? They've all been bred from lions and tigers. So they're all the same kind. So really, you're only talking about 50 dinosaur kinds that would have needed to be on the ark. Now, if you're interested in the ark and you know all the questions that skeptics have asked, how would you feed that many animals? And how would you take care of the doo-doo? And all these things people ask. I suggest that book on the table there, Noah's Ark Feasibility Study by Woodburn. Okay, I just gave you a whole bunch of information. Let's try to pack it together here in our timeline. See, God created everything on day 6 of the land animals and man on day 6, including the dinosaurs. They would have coexisted. Time of Noah's flood, that's where the fossils would have come from. But they would have been on the ark because they were animals, and God said to put 2 of every kind. You know, He didn't say, oh, by the way, not the dinosaurs. They would have got off the ark, and there should be some evidence of dinosaurs and people coexisting there. And, you know, people ask the question, why don't we see dinosaurs in the Bible? Well, you're not going to find the word dinosaur in the Bible because it's a modern word, of course. King James Version of the Bible came out in 1611. And it wasn't until many years later, 230 years after that, that Sir Richard Owen coined the word dinosaur. So it's a modern word, you're not going to find it in the Bible. But one of the young lads was asking me today about a creature that would readily describe something like a dinosaur, if you couldn't use the word dinosaur, and that's the word dragon. You know, these huge reptilian beasts, there's these myths about these huge reptilian beasts, and guys have gone on and slain dragons and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how many of these dragon legends are around the world. St. George and the Dragon. You know, the flag of Wales has a dragon on it. Some of the old Bible commentaries contain references to dragons. The Chinese zodiac, of course, has all these creatures we readily understand, you know, sheep, monkey, and all that stuff, and it's also got dragon. So cultures worldwide have talked about these reptilian beasts, and it's interesting if you actually go to, you know, BibleGateway.com, you know, one of these places where you can get multiple versions of the Bible. Type in the word dragon in the KJV version and see how many times dragon comes up. Not as just a, you know, reference to Satan or anything like that, but as a real creature. You know, the dragon and the owl in the wilderness. You know, the modern versions have changed the word, but there's no reason to do that because it was the Hebrew word for dragon. Check out this dinosaur skull they found recently. They call them Dracorex. Put a little skin on him. What do you think he'd look like? There's the Microsoft boys that funded the dig, and their sign down here says it's a new type of dinosaur that looks like a dragon. Interesting. But look at the book of Job. Of course, we don't, it doesn't say dinosaur. It says look at the behemoth, or behemoth, whatever way you say it. Tomato, tomato. So, okay, well, we don't know what that is. So let's just read it and see if we can get an understanding of what it might be. Look at the behemoth which I made along with you. See, God said God created the land animals and people on day 6 of creation. Look at the behemoth which I made along with you, which feeds on grass like an ox, the strength he has in his loins, the power in the muscles of his belly, his tail sways like a cedar. And it goes on to describe this huge, massive creature, etc., etc. Well, what kind of creature today has a tail that sways like a tree? See, that's a great description for a sauropod dinosaur, right there in Scripture. Of course, just a caution,